Wow, it looks even better than the photos.
It looks expensive. They always talk about how we're best friends. Best friends do this, best friends do that, but I don't want to be best friends, Jill.
You don't like me?
No. The problem is I like you too much. I fell in love with you the first time I laid eyes on you. I was hoping you felt the same.
Talk to me. Help me understand you.
I remember the first time I met Taylor. It was after class in the hallway. Like a cheesy rom-com, I dropped my books and no one noticed. I was invisible. But then I look up, someone is helping me. She was beautiful. I even remember her smell, like lavender. How could I forget? A fire was lit in me. She was all I could think about. All I wanted was to spend every waking moment with her. And in a way, my dreams came true.
This fourth film completes the quartet by confronting the most fraught intersection of desire, power, and visibility, placing two women in a space where intimacy is structured by transaction and expectation. And in doing so, it asks some of the hardest questions the collection has raised about what it means for queer women, particularly Black women, to be seen as whole rather than consumable. From the outset, the dialogue is fragmented, halting, almost colliding with itself. And this fractured rhythm mirrors the emotional dissonance between Angela and Jenna, a dissonance shaped not by lack of feeling, but by too many competing frameworks for how feeling is allowed to exist. Angela's repeated insistence, "Talk to me, help me understand you," signals a longing that goes beyond the surface of their arrangement. Yet it is immediately undercut by Jenna's exhaustion and guardedness, her sense that everything sucks without quite being able to articulate why, because the environment they inhabit has never required articulation from her. Only performance. The setting implicitly invokes sex work without sensationalizing it, and this choice is critical, because the film is not interested in titillation but in the emotional consequences of a world that trains women to separate body from self in order to survive, and that trains those who desire them, regardless of gender, to believe access can substitute for understanding. Angela's confusion about why she is brought over night after night without physical culmination is not framed as entitlement but as disorientation. A genuine inability to reconcile the closeness she feels with the boundaries that remain in place, and her questions, "Did I do something wrong? Do you want someone else?" echo the anxieties of many queer women who sense intimacy but cannot locate it within recognizable scripts. Jenna's response, listing the variety of women available through the agency, is devastating in its bluntness, because it exposes how interchangeable bodies are meant to be within this system, and how her refusal to be interchangeable, to accept something meaningless, is both an act of self-protection and a quiet assertion of worth. When she says she does not want anybody else but also does not want emptiness, the film crystallizes the central tension, the desire to be chosen not as a category or a service, but as a person whose inner life matters. Angela's insistence that she wants to understand Jenna, to know what moves her, is framed carefully to avoid erotic spectacle, instead positioning curiosity itself as intimacy. Yet Jenna resists, not because she lacks desire, but because she has learned that disclosure is dangerous, that being known has historically led to being used rather than cherished. The dialogue around desire is deliberately abstracted, focused on feelings of being wanted, of being made singular. And this abstraction allows the film to explore sexuality as an emotional experience rather than a physical one, emphasizing that for many women, especially those whose bodies have been commodified, desire is inseparable from dignity. When Angela says she wants the real Jenna, the request lands with weight, because the notion of a real self presumes that such a self has space to exist. And Jenna's anger in the final moments of the scene reveals how exhausting it is to be asked for authenticity in a context that has never offered safety. Her accusation, that Angela is no different from the men who have passed through, filled with loneliness and wanting possession, initially feels harsh, but the film invites us to sit with it rather than dismiss it, recognizing that from Jenna's vantage point, intention does not erase impact, and that being desired without being protected can feel indistinguishable from exploitation. The line where Jenna calls Angela a coward for hiding behind books and research cuts to the heart of the film's critique, suggesting that intellectualization can become another form of distance, a way to consume experience without accountability. And this critique is particularly resonant for queer audiences who have seen stories of desire framed as curiosity or experimentation rather than commitment. Importantly, the film does not cast Angela as a villain. Instead, it presents her as a woman caught between genuine longing and internalized scripts about how desire should be pursued, scripts historically coded as masculine but available to anyone operating within structures of privilege. Her failure is not that she wants Jenna, but that she has not yet reckoned with the power differential that shapes their interactions, nor with the way her silence, her refusal to act or speak plainly, reproduces harm even in the absence of malicious intent. For queer women watching, especially those who have navigated relationships marked by imbalance, this dynamic is painfully familiar. The experience of being deeply seen in one moment and profoundly unseen in the next, of having one's interiority invoked but not honored, of being asked to reveal oneself without assurance that the revelation will be met with care. The societal discomfort with women expressing love for each other surfaces here not as external prohibition but as distortion, as a system that renders queer intimacy either invisible or transactional, leaving little room for mutual vulnerability unmediated by roles. That discomfort persists because women's desire, particularly when detached from male approval or consumption, threatens established hierarchies. And when that desire exists between women of different social positions, it exposes how easily intimacy can be entangled with domination, if not consciously disentangled. In centering Black women, the film underscores how race compounds these pressures, as Black women are often hypersexualized and simultaneously denied emotional complexity, expected to perform strength or availability without receiving tenderness in return. Jenna's rage at being misrecognized is therefore not just personal but historical, carrying the weight of countless interactions where her humanity was secondary to someone else's needs or projections. Symbolically, Jenna occupies the role of the boundary setter, the woman who has learned to defend herself with sharpness because softness has been unsafe, while Angela represents the seeker, earnest yet insufficiently self-aware, and their collision becomes a meditation on what accountability in queer desire might look like. The film refuses to resolve their conflict neatly, and this refusal is itself a statement, rejecting the notion that understanding alone is redemptive, and insisting instead that transformation requires action, humility, and a willingness to relinquish control. For women viewers broadly, this story resonates beyond its queer specificity, touching on the universal fear of being wanted only for what one provides, the longing to be known without being consumed, and the exhaustion of having to explain one's humanity over and over again. For LGBTQ+ audiences, it expands the conversation around representation by insisting that queer stories must grapple not only with attraction and love, but with ethics, with the ways marginalized people can still replicate harm if they do not interrogate their positions. As the final movement in a 4-part exploration of lesbian connection, this film completes the emotional arc by shifting from revelation and confession to confrontation, asking what happens after desire is named but before it is responsibly held. Taken together with the previous scenes, it suggests that becoming visible is not a single act but a continuum, one that involves recognizing not only one's feelings but one's impact, and that true intimacy, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, requires conditions of safety that cannot be assumed. In ending on anger rather than reconciliation, the film honors the reality that not all encounters lead to healing, but all encounters can illuminate, and that sometimes the most authentic outcome is the refusal to be misunderstood any longer. For queer women seeking stories that reflect the complexity of their lives, this scene offers not comfort but clarity, affirming that their desire for depth, respect, and mutual recognition is not excessive or naive, but essential, and that naming the ways in which intimacy has failed is a necessary step toward imagining how it might one day succeed.